Chapter 2. As usual, the city's clock chimes 2 o'clock as merchant wagons press into distant space. She, Katie Clemmings, 22 years old, and a beauty even to talk with long, smooth golden hair and a slender physique, is captivating as she visits the banks to deposit the day's crop earnings for her father. In long stride, she quickly passes the loud and busy carpentry workshop, barber shop, and beyond the saloon. She has not much liked the roughness of labor, nor the association of she as a tender tot. Ahead is Mr. Scooter's exclusively lacquered bank. The building is like a Yule log in wooden chest among pine tinder. Mr. Scooter, the wrinkled old elder banker, steps from the lavish bank, expressing a gentle concern with her presence. An only child, and maybe even an heir, Katie's inheritance of land and home is likely to become the interest of many an investor or bandit. Katie clasps her hands over Mr. Scooter's. "Hello, Mr. Scooter. How's your afternoon fared?" "Hello, Katie. It's been just lovely, and now that you have arrived, I can only expect today to improve, though I do not reckon you should be out here alone. What do you need help with?" Mr. Scooter gestures kindly toward etched pine and swiveling doors. Entering, they are silenced by the loud, menacing questions of bad girl Robbie. Approximately Katie's age and tattered around the edges, she is known in these parts by many a fellow and often encouraging camaraderie. The chaps clinging to her jean-hugged thighs seems familiar. A G-seared brand is one of Gillespie's ranches, a brand Katie's father purchased as saddles in southeastern river country. Even though she's been along a few times, Katie had not seen this rambunctious, wavy, reddish-brown-headed and tanned beauty. "Excuse me, what do you expect me to do with this?" "What do you expect me to do with this?" Robbie admonishes the Western style. "Lobby of spiffy dressed tellers. What do you expect me to do with this? I would hope you're certain my business is needed here." Strengthening the tan and brown tie at his neck, clearing his throat and leaving Katie in astonishment, Mr. Scooter questions, "Miss, what seems to be the problem?" "Well, Sir Coot, my lovely teller's just informed me she has no clue what to do with my coins," Robbie explains with her arms flailing. "That's Mr. Scooter. The deposits are yet completed this day. Please return at 4, with the union," he burdens. Robbie breezes by and bursts through the doors. Mr. Scooter waves the lollygagging tellers, "Return at 4, as he returns to Katie. "My sincerest apologies," he directs Katie to a glossy cherry desk stacked with loose paper sheets, lining an envelope slitter with a feathered pin. He asks, "And the value?" $2 and a nickel." She exposes a wrinkled bill and a tiny, shiny silver coin. Who could this loud, annoying, yet very attractive cowgirl be? From where had the winds blown her? Would she be in Golden Lake Valley long? Wonderful. The deposit is complete. Mr. Scooter gives Katie a delighted glance. Politely, Katie accepts. "Thank you. I'll see you again tomorrow, Mr. Scooter." With a linen purse dangling against her hip, she sachets thin cotton dress drifting against her knobby knees across the diamond-designed planked floor, into the bright sun, and out onto the dusty walk. Not long ago, Katie was arguing the likelihood of future advancement and maintenance of the land surrounding her father's enormous homestead. Her father had spoken with Mr. Stanley about instructions for Katie in the knowledge of the property. She would be meeting Mr. Stanley soon for lessons about some things that she had seen but never considered being anything but instinct and common knowledge. Katie had been attending school at home. She would be in sole ownership of the cabin, the land, and a herd, should anything happen to her parents, or it would certainly be inherited for that matter. "Hey," Robbie interrupts, tossing to and fro in the saddle of an anxious Mustang. "Hello." The sun catches a moment in Katie's eyes. She instantly blocks the blinding rays with one hand. "Is this your horse?" "Yeah, she's a trick or two." She slides off the thick saddle heavily onto the ground near Katie. Robbie scans the city, nearly certain she's out of place and in good time. "Tell me you didn't steal some lonely cowman's steed?" "Of course not." Robbie cocks a grin. "What brings you to Golden Lake Valley?" Katie inquires. "Services of the bank. My name is Robbie, and this is Delilah. I'm from Southern River Country." "What do they call you?" "My name is Katie." Katie, what do you do here in this city?" Katie, finagled by the ever so subtle ease of Robbie to collect her interest, tethers at the edge of words. She begins to pinch the cloth of her purse. Robbie's dark eyes wander aimlessly for some clue as to the next moment's reaction. "I attend private school at the library, not so far from here." Katie smiles. "Ah, you're one of those." A battery of hooves on the hardened soil passes a trove of gallant hillsmen. At their backs, in linear array, are business fronts with a few gawking observers. Robbie senses the sheriff's station. I assume you'll be returning to school, she says, lifting herself effortlessly up into her saddle. When can I see you tomorrow? Katie manages an uncertainty. Well, tomorrow at 2, but Robbie has slapped the reins and disappears into the heat and dust of the afternoon. Leather-bound books are aligned perfectly within rows and columns in every shelf, and each shelving unit is about the height of a 22-hand horse, with a small stool at one end, at both ends. On a dustless hardwood floor, a bare pelt rug sprawls. Across the walls, where windows are not, decorations range from the first few issues of the Golden Lake Valley news sheet to a small exhibit of butterflies. A mysterious woman with short black hair, like an accessory to her white cotton lace blouse, a flowing black ankle skirt, and an awkward fair-skinned man, very similar in casual disposition, lounge near the center of the room. Excuse me, Katie whispers. Looking from a thick book, the woman in an astute accent quietly acknowledged, "Oh, you must be Katie, Mr. Stanley's student." "Yes, if you don't mind me asking, where is he?" "He has yet to get you the message." The woman retrieves a case of horticultural photographs in grayscale. The instant a short and pizzazz-stricken woman comes through the entrance with a bouquet of colorful blooms, stems, and leaves. Katie is slightly unsure of the queerness she is experiencing. "Katie, please forgive me. My name is Lily, and this is Violet, Mr. Preston." Violet suggests, "Well, Lily, he has been a bit absent-minded lately." Mr. Preston dejects. "Mr. Stanley, no, he's extremely purposeful." Lily informs, "Katie, you were to instruct you on today's session." Katie fingers the petals of a rose. "Okay, what could I learn from those images and these beautiful plants that would be so useful to my father's homestead?" Mr. Preston's long outstretched palm points toward a slanted-back chair. He offers, "Please, sit here." Katie seats herself. This day, Mr. Stanley has recommended a more detailed session about using plants to appeal the senses by placement. Lily explains. Violet glances toward Lily as she smiles warmly and informs, "I'll be home soon." Violet leaves as Mr. Preston furthers. "We have learned to treat agronomy like gardening with the same respect as horticulture and to someday teach this new art to later generations." Katie responds with a blank stare. "Well, I guess we should begin. My mother has surrounded our cabin with daisies." Concurrent, Mr. Preston and Lily are staring at Katie. Mr. Preston has never courted. He is a simple man with an eye for detail and beauty, yet he lives with Lily and Violet near the foothills at the timberline. They keep to themselves, and for the most part, in enjoyment of the finest qualities of life. The Clemmings homestead spreads across a sparsely wooded pasture like a draped canopy of a country painting. The maple, hickory, and spruce are like strokes winding in patterns demarcating each lot with abstract boundaries, and a spray of wildflowers are like spatters of various warm paint tints and shades. Skipping and hopping along a stone path outside a log fence marking a green field to the west, and by the nearest daisy patch, Katie sweeps a bundle of delicate daisies into a pinch. Centered a gigantic 2-story cabin, sweet peas in full bloom, is a thick walnut tree supporting a wooden seat swing. Grass gives way to stone path leading to the cabin's porch. Hoof and wheel trodden paths lead to gates at each side. Gardens nearly fully developed are at east, laden with carrot, parsnips, potatoes, onions, celery, turnips, and sweet potatoes, and broccoli. The trees are heavy with tender apricots and peaches. When Katie was younger, the daisies outside the cabin's kitchen window, had amazed her curious mind hour on end. With a small knit doll her grandmother had woven, her companion of each simple adventure, she would skip away. As the wind would sweep through the trees and wisp past wheat, she imagined mustard and tall grass were huge sheets of clouds. If she wanted, she could slide across or hide to evade her mother's searching eye. Beyond the cabin, Mrs. Clemmings is exiting a laundry house with a wicker basket filled with freshly wrung clothing. Around the lightly waving laundry line, drooping with pinned linen and clothing, Katie peeks. "Good evening, Mother." "Honey, how was school?" Mrs. Clemmings questions with her hands upon her hips. "Mr. Stanley recruited Lily and Mr. Preston to relay the information I need to know to appeal the senses by plant and tree placement." "What do you expect to change?" "Mother, managing the property isn't going to be the simplest task to understand without experience. Daddy hasn't taken me along on any of the cattle drives," she argues, attaching the end of a towel to a clothing line. Perhaps he never will, Mrs. Clemmings acknowledges, dragging a palm across the midsection of her shirt. You really should consider taking an offer from one of the nice boys in town. I really don't find the notion to shack up necessary, Katie interrupts as she toddles off to the cabin. Fresh pies near the window on the counter I baked early this morning. Mrs. Clemmings raises her voice just loud enough to reach Katie. Jane, a collie puppy her father had brought from a garrison's litter, had been lapping smoothly from a tin of water. Mr. Clemmings had probably filled the tin before he left to the pasture. The scent of cinnamon and apples wafts about wooden furnishings. As she drops her purse onto a comb-back chair near an antique bookcase and mahogany chest, she finds a thin parchment mailer upon an oak trunk coffee table notifying Mr. Clemmings of a cattle drive and Mrs. Clemmings of the River Country Bacon Expo. On the way to the staircase, she straightens a ridge from a small twine rug. The city of Golden Lake Valley should be receiving a shipment of dried fruits. Mrs. Clemmings had ordered during winter the year prior. Harvesting season is the biggest season for events and communal affairs. The River Country Bacon Expo hosts everything from pie baking contests to livestock prizing and horseshoeing. Fall is the only time of year when all is that ends well. Half the year, Mr. Clemmings trains saddle horses to meet the demands for the drive-in expo. At the close of the expo, he usually instructs the riders to herd through the city a large group of cattle leaving for Malbo. Large meat market, some 700 miles northeast of River Country. Would Robbie be going? Katie groans, dropping herself onto a low-back writing chair near a short log desk. Mrs. Clemmings prepares for the bake during early fall. The tins are brought out and the jars are stacked. For several weeks, Mrs. Clemmings' only duty is cooking. Oh, but how the apples have the sweetest scent when paired with cinnamon. Ginger and vanilla flavors in Mom's lovely pudding. Peaches and apricots are wonderful dried. On the other hand, the drive would bring the finest wares to Malbo. Jean hip huggers tethered with thick leather chaps and some spurs off the back of some boots. My own, oh yes, what a pleasant idea. To get there, they would have to drive an entire herd from River Country northwest toward Golden Lake Valley, but through a non-wooded hill pass and onward until reaching Malbo. The city of Malbo then fell victim to shouting, shooting, whip cracking, and stomping through its center. At least those are the descriptions from the headlines of the Golden Lake Valley news sheet. Katie was dying to know. Maybe home was just old. Sudden urgency to dash into the fields was squirming its way into Katie's consciousness, and maybe, just maybe, the erratic plea would be the oncoming responsibility. Whatever the spontaneity would suggest, she could make herself scarce in the loft to finish the daily study. Cressing her donkey Rocky Mountain pony cross, the bunkhouse cleaning, the barn animal feeding, the stable raking, the replacement of hay would just have to wait or decompose. She did not care.